And now, a longtime friend of the program, a person who has taken IMC principles and applied it to his own agency, and a longtime leader in the global business marketing community, our friend and a good friend and fan of Don's, Gary Slack. Gary, who are you? Where are you? Tell us a Don story.
Absolutely, Jim. Thank you for having me. Unlike most of the other participants, I was never a student nor a fellow educator of Don's. But my story starts in the late 1980s when, while at Omnicom, one of Omnicom agencies, I caught the entrepreneurial bug and decided I wanted to start my own agency. And I looked around and said, should I start a PR firm? Should I start an ad agency, a direct marketing firm? But around that time, I had been reading about integrated marketing communications, which was in its infancy. I read the book Integrated Marketing Communications by Don and the late Stan Tannenbaum and Bob Lauterborn, and was absolutely transfixed. And I found my answer. That's the kind of agency I wanted to have. And here we are 31 years later. I have retired, but we ran an IMC B2B agency for 30 years. In fact, along the way, Heidi and Don were kind enough in IMC book Next Generation 2006 to single us out as one of the top IMC agencies in the United States. But that's where the story begins. I've tried to read all of Don and Heidi's books. I've read many of Don's articles. But the story I want to tell is about how, as you recall very well, Jim, about early this year, pre-COVID, you and I, knowing that we might not be able to see Don a whole lot more, reached out to them. You did this for both of us and asked if they would be agreeable to getting together with us for lunch. And you and I were both delighted when they said yes. We had a very, very nice lunch in Evanston, not far from where they live. And the first part of the lunch was really just listening to Don, which is what you and I wanted to do, having him regale us with stories of growing up in Oklahoma, how he made it big in the ad agency world and in New York City and Chicago and Texas, his transition from the business world, the agency world to academia, and the success he had in founding and really pioneering the concept of integrated marketing communications. But as you recall, and as Heidi will recall, because Heidi was with us, of course, around 2/3 of the way through the lunch, I asked a question. And I asked it somewhat nervously, but I was really interested in the answer. And I asked Don, how would you like to be remembered? And he paused and started to think about that. I had already thought about what his possible answers might be. I had said to myself, he might want to be remembered as an Okie who made it really big in the ad agency world and in business and academia and New York City, among other places. He might have said he wanted to be remembered as someone who had helped Borden, which was one of his major clients, sell a lot of milk products along with the help of Elsie the cow. It's possible, I said to myself, he might want to be remembered as someone who made it big in the ad agency world, but also with big brands. Or that he had made this amazing transition to academia, and that he might want to be remembered as the global founder, if you will, pioneer of the whole concept of integrated marketing communications. I also thought that he might want to be remembered, at least in part, as an incredible marketer who had made a name for himself and for IMC throughout China, India, and other parts of the world. And so those things came back into my mind, and I was waiting for his answer. And a few seconds later, he gave us his answer, and it was very simple and succinct, just like Don always was in class and in all conversations. He said, very succinctly again, I made people think. He wanted to be remembered as someone who made people think in the classroom. He did that for me. He did that for many more people, and he's going to be doing that for me and others for years to come. That's my story. Jim, back to you.
Well, thank you, Gary, and a great story. And thanks, by the way, for having the brains and the guts to ask that question of Don, because we'd all want to know the answer. And in this case, he gave it to us.
He sure did.
So thank you for your longtime friendship for the program, above and beyond asking that question. And I may have gotten you to pay for lunch. I don't exactly recall.
Let me just add one last thing. like you, I love the man. And if this isn't too strong of a word, I worshiped him.
Well, well, I won't go to worship, but strong admiration. I'll go for that. Oh, and by the way, for our audience, yes, there are some people who have observed that Gary and I are evil twins, although we constantly go back and forth about who is the more evil.
Well, Heidi was the one who made that original deduction, as you recall.
I'm the more evil. Okay.
Well, that we're evil twins. I don't know that she made that value judgment.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. That was just great.
You're welcome.